Like moths to a flame, you've thrown caution to the wind for a glimpse into our world. Well, now you're in it.
Welcome to Effed Up Stories.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I'm your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And tonight's episode is free, so you can put away your pitchforks, folks. And this one it has to do with I don't know if you call it maybe time travel, but the interesting thing here is there's certain elements to this woman's story that to me reminds me of the Stephen King's story, The Langoliers, where certain senses were dulled while she was having this missing time experience. Of course, this story comes from our fan, Sheri Lowe. She's included quite a few stories on our site, and we did a podcast with her a year and a half ago, I believe it was. Great podcast, and this is going to be a great little podcast on its own. So I'm very excited to tell you about that. But as I've told many of you, I actually made a point of messaging quite a few of you earlier or yesterday or the day before about a very important message that you need to hear. Obviously, a lot of you are aware of this by now. We, for the first time ever, have put up paid content earlier the week. And we did expect some backlash, but honestly, on our whole channel, it's like the sky is falling. So we have listened to your concerns, your suggestions, and everything else. Honestly, though, I mean, we don't really have to do any of it because we do have a fan base that is willing to pay for it and support us for all of our hard work. As evidence, if you actually look at the videos that are paid, people are buying it. So we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. And what we are offering will actually please. It should please everybody. You know, some of the things that people have asked for, was previews to the content that we're selling. So that
we're trying to find a way to find a balance between both sides. We've listened to what you've had to say, and we've discussed it extensively between one another. And while we feel that we've finally nailed a solution or a way to go about this that will, be a balanced approach for everybody involved.
Yes. So the thing is, everybody wants more episodes and they want it more often. Well, the fact is, there's a budget to this show, and up till now, it's been coming out of our pocket. It takes us a lot of time. You might not realize it, but I put 20 to 30 hours into Effed Up Stories related work every week, in addition to my full-time job. You wouldn't work for nothing, and neither would we. Just, it did start out as a hobby, but as people demand it more and there was more work to be done, it's really become a part-time job. So how do we do this where people don't have to pay? And we've come up with a solution. So we are going to offer the episodes for free, but it's going to be on our terms. The way this works is, starting with our very next episode, which should be coming out early next week, is that when we upload the video, it goes free for 24 hours. So pay attention to our channel. If you don't have me on Facebook or Twitter, you might want to add me. Every time I do upload a video, it also sends out a message. You have 24.
There's also an official Effed Up Stories Facebook page as well that you can feel free to search out and find, and I will add you immediately.
Yes, so when we upload the video, you have 24 hours to watch it for free. After 24 hours, it's going to go paid for a grace period of 3 days. You can think of the 3-day period, if you feel like purchasing it, would be a way to support us. It's almost like a donation, but you do get to own the video. There's a specific reason for this. It usually takes about 3 days for YouTube to update its analytical information for me. So after 3 days, I'll be able to go in and look and see how many views the video has gotten, and I'll be able to see what the ad revenue is at this point. Basically, we have 6,000 subscribers or near about, and every time we upload a video, it takes about a week for us to get 1,000 views, and at the end of a month, we're near 2,000. The problem is, what determines a video's visibility and how popular it becomes, aside from keywords and all those other things, all happens within the first 24 hours that it hits YouTube. That's how things get popular. That's how people find it. It's how it gets on the watch page. So in that 24 hours, by watching it, you're helping us without opening your wallets. You're simply watching the video and you're helping us.
It's supporting the overall growth of Effed Up Stories, which is what we're looking to do with all of this.
Yes. So when you do that, I mean, in that 24 hours, that's the time to not only watch it, it's the time to share the content with your friends. It's the time to, if you have a blog, put it on your blog, embed it on it. If you have a website, embed it on it. In that way, you're helping us and you're not having to open your wallets. You're literally getting to watch it. The other thing is, in the 3-day grace period of when YouTube finally updates its analytics, I'll see how much ad revenue it made. So I'll know if you've been skipping ads. If you're skipping ads, you're not helping us. So if you want to support us, you're going to watch those ads. And when I get those analytics, I'm going to be comparing the ad views, how much ad revenue has been made and how many views have been made, and I'm going to be comparing it to our pinnacle video, Skinwalker Ranch. If it exceeds what Skinwalker Ranch made in that time period, which it should because it's an older video, but it's our most popular one. And there's no reason it shouldn't because we got 6,000 subscribers. So if you guys all watch in that 24-hour period and you're watching the ads, there's no reason why we shouldn't exceed those thresholds. And if you do, I'll put it free again, and it'll stay free. If you don't, it's going to stay paid, and then you'll be supporting us by having to buy it. So it's your choice. If you want to watch it for free, you're going to watch the ads, and you're going to watch it in the 24 hours that we put it up. If you don't, you're going to have to pay for it out of your wallet. Either way, we're going to get paid. So it depends on you. What would you rather do? Would you rather watch a couple of minutes of ads and watch it when we upload it, or would you rather open your wallet? So
of course, this is a collective endeavor. This is not a situation where, when you get to that ad, you shouldn't say to yourself, well, my view isn't going to matter, because they all do. Every view, every viewer that happens within the first 24 hours and every ad that is viewed, it does matter in the overall scheme of things. And if we hope to grow the show, which is ultimately what we want to do with this, we want to do this as a professional thing. And if we're going to achieve that goal, then we're going to need the help of the collective. And, each one of you out there individually who's listening is going to add to that. You guys matter. And, that's why we're taking this approach, because we do appreciate our fans. We appreciate support we've received over the last 3 years. But, with everything, there's a certain amount of give and take.
That's right. It really is, is a numbers game. It's no, one person could be the most supportive person in the world, but you all need to be doing it. It's the only way this is going to work. So there's your option. You can support us by watching a couple of minutes of ads and watching it within the first 24 hours, or you can open your wallets. The choice is yours, and you'll get to make that decision starting early next week when we upload our next podcast. So with that having been said, I think we really did offer it in a way that there's no complaints. It's going to be free if you do how we say to do it. So with that said, we're going to jump into our story sent in by a great fan of ours, a very supportive fan, Sheri Lowe. And her story has to do, of course, with missing time, and is more than that. It's more than just missing time. So I'm just going to jump into the story, and then we'll circle around and discuss the very interesting highlights of the story. So this whole experience for her happened in Saskatoon. It was in the beginning of August, and in her words, it was one of the most beautiful summers that she can recall. A lot of the great weather came from the fact that they had these thunderstorms, so it kind of evened out the balance between the hot and the cold. So anyway, this essentially happens when her and her boyfriend, now Sheri is a Canadian, which you probably gathered by Saskatoon. Her boyfriend was an American, and she met him when he had came to Canada. He had actually come in to visit his son. So anyway, and obviously it was from a previous marriage. Anyway, they were basically, he never had a working visa. And so, he had to go back to the U.S. So, understandably, Sheri wasn't too happy about this. But anyway, he was going to return to Minneapolis, and he was going to continue to, try to get his working visa from there. And Sheri decided that, she could really use a month's vacation, and she was going to drive with him to Minneapolis and, help him get settled in. So they were going to drive from Saskatoon. So they were going to, drive, they said they were planned to drive to Regina, Saskatoon, and that was 250 kilometers away. They were going to refuel, kind of relax a little bit, and then they were going to head to Minoy, North Dakota. They were going to stop for the night, and then they were going to go to Minneapolis. So her boyfriend's name is Michael, by the way. So they were both, exhausted from, all of this, hassle that they had over this deportation order. And, apparently Michael had lost his case. So, they were depressed. It was kind of a downer time. And it really hit Michael because, he had to leave his son and he had to leave Sheri. So it was a hard time. And it ended up giving what Sheri called, Michael had walking pneumonia. So as she drove, he slept, I guess, because he was sick. So anyway, she said she distinctly remembers when she left, she checked the time, because she was annoyed at, they were leaving so late. It was a late time to go on this journey. And it also meant, as many people fear, it meant she was going to be driving in the dark. And I know from my own family members, when they've had to visit me, they don't like driving in the dark. And I would assume that that's a fairly common feeling. So anyway, she was driving, she had the DJ came on, he confirmed the time during his, his hourly feedback or news break or whatever. So she remembers making a quick mental calculation that they should reach Regina between 6 and 6:30 p.m. and that she would have light until around 10 p.m., it being summer and all. And she said she believed she was 30 or so miles out of Saskatoon on the Trans-Canada #1 highway when she started getting these odd sensations. And this is the part that I found interesting. The physical experience inside the car began to change. She said everything quieted like it was muted. And she said, this is true for the radio. And she described it as if she was wrapped in a wad of cotton. Okay, so there was a clear dulling of the sense of sound. And she looked over at Michael, to comment and kind of point this out to him. But he was asleep, so, she didn't bother to wake him up. And then she noticed, like you're driving on the road, your tires are making noise. It's kind of loud, generally, especially on the highway. And she noticed that the noise and the bumps that, you typically experience when you're on the highway, it basically disappeared. She said the car felt as if it was hovering a few inches off the ground instead of, driving on it. She actually said, and I quote, that it was like as if she was sailing through the air. She also didn't see any other cars on the highway. And I mean, this is a busy highway. It's very, very, I don't care what time of day it is. It's just very, very uncommon to not see cars on this highway. And for that matter, even most, main highways like that, it's very rare to not see other cars. So that was weird. And then she said she distinctly remembers, and this is one of those things, I guess it's really hard to describe, but if you could just picture it, she said she distinctly remembers feeling like everything was syrupy. The closest thing that she said she was able to compare it to was when she would lane swim a mile or so and she'd be exhausted until like she'd break through it and go to this state of what she called a runner's high. So any of you who do like regular exercise might have a better idea of what she's describing there, but she said it's like this whooshy slow motion feeling. And I'm going to circle back to why I think this is interesting later. Anyway, she said when she got to Regina, she went in to refuel the vehicle, and she was really shocked to find that they had almost not used any gas. They were on the highway for all this time, and she was expecting that they would have really put a dent in that gas tank. And the second thing that really struck her was that, she asked this pump attendant for the time, and he said it was 5 p.m. And, she said she knew, like she was aware of, she knew what he was going to say, but it didn't make any sense to her. She still felt compelled to ask him, was this still on Central Standard Time or was this Saskatoon time? And, he gave her this queer look. And, at this point, Michael wakes up and he's amazed and baffled too. The timing is all off. And, she said it, and this is the way she broke it down. It was physically impossible for her to have made 160 miles in 1 hour, even if she had been speeding. Okay. What's more is the fact that, there was some kind of physical, I don't know if you call it symptoms, or some kind of a physical reaction that she had while this happened. The rest of the trip went on normally, but, she had all these weird sensations. There was no traffic and stuff like that. And, she's trying to break down to break down the experience and understand it better. And she's wondering, like, is it emotional states in this situation? Is it, the focus that she wanted to get there before it got dark? She's just going through all these different, feelings and trying to make sense of it. And here's where I'm at when I read it. Like when you read the being wrapped in, the cotton and the sound and the feeling syrupy and the slow motion feeling. If any of you have watched the movie The Langoliers or read the book by Stephen King, part of it was, and spoilers if you haven't seen it and want to, They basically, these people got on a plane, and they were going to obviously fly somewhere, and in the months of doing so, several of these people on the plane had fallen asleep. And when they woke up, including one of them who was in there was a pilot, when they had come to, they discovered that everybody else had disappeared, and they were now up in the air. They hadn't landed. They didn't understand how everybody could be gone. And more mysteriously, there was people's pacemakers and stuff that was inside of people's bodies were laying on their seats, as if, how the hell does that happen? But the similarity here was that, sound, like they would discover that, you could be in a parking lot, like obviously they did land. They landed at an emergency airport. And when they'd like clap inside the building or out in these big spacious places, like on the runway and stuff, there was no echo. When they went to eat food, it was stale. When they opened up cans of pop and stuff like that, there was no fizz. Everything was muted, and that's essentially what Sheri described in her experience there. And also, not seeing any cars on this very busy highway, it reminded me of the Langoliers, in that they were in the air, and or I should say, even when they landed, I mean, there was nobody anywhere. There was no vehicles. There was no traffic. There was nobody in the airport. They couldn't make communication with radio. They couldn't, like, everybody else had disappeared. So it's almost like they, in the movie, it's like now it's a little bit different in the movie, but for Sheri, it's almost like she had, I don't know if you'd call it another dimension or a parallel dimension. Ryan, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, what she's, describing in terms of a physical sense is, a situation that we've seen in, transatlantic trips in airplane, and we've had, ship captains and motorists, all kinds of people who traveling from one place to another over the last few decades have experienced a similar phenomenon. It actually puts me in mind of some of the Bermuda Triangle stories where the captain of the ship and some passengers and whatnot would describe this sensation like things would become syrupy, or it was like everything was thick in a way, and had this, like you said, this muted atmosphere, almost like if you've ever stepped outside on a freshly snow, a day where it was like this fresh light snow have fallen out over everything, and that has a tendency of absorbing the echoes and the reverberation of sound. And if you walk outside on this fresh morning before the snow has been all tromped down by the day's activity, there's this very unusual hush that falls over things. And it's a very similar situation that I've read about and heard about in interviews, a dozen or more times. And it's very interesting that, especially with Bermuda Triangle and some of these stories of airplanes that find themselves hours ahead of schedule, like what kind of process could be involved here. And it's it's strange because it falls outside of the way that we think that time works. We think of time as being this very static, even flow. Well, not static, but I guess this very
It's consistent. It doesn't change.
Yeah, consistent flow. 160 seconds is 60 seconds is 60 seconds from one moment to the next. But there's been numerous accounts of people who've experienced this kind of a phenomenon where time seems to slow down. And I don't know if it's entirely just our perception of events. Obviously, in this case, it couldn't just be a perception of events. I mean, we have, like she said, 160 miles being covered in 1 hour. Now, I can't convert that to kilometers in my head right off the bat here, but I'm going to go ahead and say that traveling in excess of 160 miles an hour on a major highway leading, I mean, it's a trans-border highway. It's one of these main arteries linking Canada and the United States. You're not going to get away with flying down the highway at 160 miles an hour for very long. Even if your vehicle, whatever that translates to in the kilometers an hour, and I excuse my ignorance on miles, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's not a normal speed for any land vehicle to be able to achieve. I mean, she was, as she put it, an hour ahead of schedule. You just think about how much distance you can travel on a highway in an hour. That's more than just perception. There's something going on here.
There's physical properties being changed here.
Well, there's the whole idea of time and distance are being transcended. We have a whole physical impossibility. You're moving through space time quicker than you're supposed to be able to under normal circumstances. And the fact that there are these, actual tangible physical traits, experiences that go along with this, definitely I feel leads some credence to the idea that there's something non-standard going on here. There's something strange, and I've actually done some reading up on, these different airplanes that have experiences lurching forward in time and space, where they're arriving at their destination out an hour or 2 hours, or sometimes, more ahead of schedule. And there's actually a NASA scientist who has done research into this, and he feels that it's a kind of a naturally occurring a time-space warp bubble. And he's actually done some real experiments on this, and through his research has taken to this idea of creating a machine that is able to capitalize on what he considers to be a naturally occurring event. So I don't think the idea of traveling through space and time, and again, there's, she puts in that thing about the road sounds. Now, anybody who's traveled on the highway for an extended period of time, I mean, there's a definite kind of a sound and experience that there is to driving down the highway. The tires on the road, the bumps, the ridges, the ups, the downs,
the vibration of the car.
Yeah, exactly. The vibration of the car as you follow the highway, side to side. Generally highways are pretty straight, but there's always a little turn or something somewhere.
And those little, the grooves on the side to wake you up if you.
The rumble strips,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a case of her falling asleep at the wheel, or we probably wouldn't have gotten the story from her.
Oh, and there's this too. I don't know about everybody else, but unless the road was just paved, it's not the most smooth to drive on, right? So the fact
especially a main artery leading
exactly.
in and out of the states, is going to experience a lot of heavy, transport truck traffic, and that's hard on an asphalt road.
So for her to feel like she's gliding, right? I mean, again, that we're talking about muted sensations all the way around, and like the thing that really is the muted sensations that interest me most. And it makes me think a little bit. Like, say if we're talking about the Bermuda Triangle, say, or actually take birds for example. When birds say, like, they know where south is and they know where north is, and they can find their way around. And they say that it's because birds can pick up on this magnetic, like, I guess magnetism. That's
Well, I think most modern theory on it is that they can actually see the magnetic lines of flux of the planet, and it's actually an actual visible landmark for them.
right. And like one of the things that people, one of the theories in the Bermuda Triangle is that there's these highly magnetic types of rock that throw off people's compasses and stuff like that. But I mean, are there other symptoms that can be caused by this? And one of the things that I think about is magnetism. I mean, as magnets are used for memory. I mean, if you look at cassette tapes, for example, you have. I mean, it's these little magnetic pieces of metal that are crushed up onto the tape that hold.
Even early computer storage was magnetic tape.
Well, hell, even I think even hard drives, like, well, not SSD drives, but like your standard, the spinning disk drives. I believe.
So gold disc with the information stored in a magnetic way.
Exactly. So perhaps magnetism is also something that, I mean, when you think about how our brains store memory, I mean, is it possible that we can pick up on these things too? Or actually, even if you want to scrap that whole idea, is it possible that being around large amounts of magnetism can alter time? And one example that I can think of, that I always think of, is the Philadelphia experiment.
Philadelphia.
Right? Because
was it Project Rainbow or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that. But they were essentially, they took this giant ship and they were trying to cloak it. I mean, it was supposed to be for military applications, and so they used electromagnetism to do this, but it didn't cloak it. It actually altered physical properties, because now the people who watched the ship, they did watch it disappear, and they watched it reappear when it came to port. But when it did reappear, certain people on that ship were actually embedded into it. Like, I mean, they could have like their leg literally now infused with the metal body of the ship. I mean, it's just not physically possible.
Not to mention that it was momentarily reported that it had appeared off the coast of the United States somewhere, hundreds of miles away, just seconds after it had disappeared. Where they had attempted the experiment.
And then if we're going to go even a step further than that, we had the highly recognized military official on there that claims to have fallen overboard into a time warp tunnel. Like, I mean, he described it as a tunnel. He claims to have gone into the future and talked with the scientists. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but it was something to do about the past. And they sent him back. I mean, this was a highly decorated military man, right? I mean, this is a guy that had credibility. I don't care how crazy the story sounds. This is a guy that had credibility, right? And so, I mean, they were using magnetism there. They amplified it electrically. So, in the terms of Sheri, I mean, because we do know that magnetic rocks and stuff like that, as in the Bermuda Triangle, I mean, they do form naturally, right? I mean, is it possible that she just happened to be at the right moment, where however the magnetosphere was spinning around the world, she happened to be in a spot primed with perhaps magnetic rocks.
Well, I mean, and that's a good point. You bring up the magnetosphere. I mean, there is a precedent for magnetic anomalies occurring, and sometimes these can occur over a wide area. Sometimes they're isolated. But now that you bring up the the electromagnetic aspect of that, it actually puts me in mind of research that was done by He's a rather well-known neuroscientist. Now, I can't offhand remember the guy's name. Perhaps I'll come up with it later, and we can put it in the description or whatnot. But this guy's done quite a bit of research on the idea of the human mind, its interface with planet Earth via the Earth's magnetic field, and the relationship that certain kinds of ESP phenomenon have with electromagnetic anomalies. And what he's found is that, in particular, with specific quote unquote psychic individuals, people who exhibit a greater ability at psychic phenomenon, they have actually recorded using photon receivers, and it's a machine that's used to literally see the light that is emanated from a human brain when it's firing with all the neurons. There's a certain amount of photons that are released through the actual brain case, the skull. And then this guy, he compared to us, he was like a supernova every time that he was doing stuff. And they actually built a specialized cap that was able to detect magnetic anomalies, or produce them in specific areas of the brain. And the part of the brain that they were seeing a lot of activity in, and enabling certain people to have psychic phenomenon by inducing a magnetic field in the brain. This guy's brain was creating the magnetic field all on its own, and they were able to register it by use of this specialized cap that they've built. There's a lot of information on this. If you just do a little bit of searching, I'm sure anybody could come across it. But it's very interesting to see that there seems to be a link between the human mind, the magnetic field of the planet, and there seems to be some kind of relationship between ESP kind of phenomenon, or at least psi phenomenon, I should say, and alterations in the Earth's magnetic field.
So now, Ryan, I remember you telling me this. Jesus, it wasn't that long ago. So for everybody listening, just to kind of summarize, essentially what Ryan is saying is that the magnetosphere, like a scientist has actually discovered that is like in a magnetosphere, that all of our memories and stuff like that is like it gets uploaded. Literally it gets put up into this magnetosphere going around the Earth. And we can pull it back, right? But people with ESP and stuff like that, they can actually go in and grab other people's memories and thoughts. And that's how they get them, and that's how it works. So the interesting thing about it, if you wanted to compare it to modern technology, this whole theory is kind of like cloud technology.
Yes.
You put your images, or stuff like that on Dropbox, which is a server somewhere else, and then you can go on your phone, you can go on your laptop, you can go on a computer, anywhere, and you can grab it because you're grabbing it off the cloud. So, and
to extend the metaphor even further, the idea of the Earth's magnetic field is actually not just being like a cloud that you can upload information to, but also a medium by which you can network other human minds together.
Well, yeah. So exactly, right. It's like a giant network that is going to. It's not unlike a business's live server, right? Like if you work at a company where you have a network of computers, like where I work, we have the network in the local office, but we also have networks all throughout Canada, and some of the programs and stuff we use could be in various different provinces. They all look like they're local on your machine, but different processing is being done with different programs and folders and stuff like that all over Canada on that one machine. And, that's essentially cloud processing. So this guy has discovered that, the magnetosphere could very well be the cloud, And basically, people with ESP, like when we go to the cloud, we have our credentials, we grab our own stuff. That's our frequency. That's what we operate on. But this guy or people with ESP and mind reading capabilities and stuff like that, they're able to actually. I remember you telling me this, Ryan. When they had the cap on him and they were measuring his brain frequency and stuff like that, his brain waves would actually drop or raise in level to match the person that he was thinking
match
about.
His target.
Exactly. So, and that is what ties us to our thoughts. Our own brains will vibrate at a wave, or it gives off a wave, a brain wave of a certain signature that's ours. It's like that's our identity. And we all have
your brain's fingerprint, as it were.
Yeah, so like we all have a different one, but people with ESP and stuff like that, they can actually tune into other people's brain waves and match it. Like their brain wave will raise or lower to match yours, and they can grab that person's thoughts.
And I guess it really begs the question: is what is the extent of this kind of interaction between the human mind and essentially the rest of the world around us, which is essentially the universe that we live in. Locally that's planet Earth, but just for the sake of argument, this kind of research is really just in its extreme infancy. Is it possible that the human mind can't interface with something as powerful as the Earth's magnetic field, and but with some kind of, through some kind of biofeedback mechanism or some sort of working together between the two systems? And I mean, we know through certain types of technology like HARP and whatnot that very small changes to the Earth's magnetic field, very specific, as they call it, strumming on the magnetic chords, as it were, which is where the whole, the pseudonym and the idea of harp comes into play. Is the idea of strumming on these chords. Very small changes in the Earth's magnetic field, the magnetosphere, in one area can have far-reaching effects all the way around the globe. So likewise, is it possible that the human mind can't interface with the Earth's magnetic field, and that the Earth's magnetic field, being such a vast and all-persuasive thing that it is, I mean, let's face it, it's the entire planet, could that in itself, that kind of interaction between the two, create such a powerful reaction that it actually speeds up time or slows down time or alters what we know to be, the constant, stable, quote unquote, laws of physics that we experience every day? Is it possible that there's some kind of interaction here between the magnetic field and the human mind that, I guess, amplifies our thoughts or our desires, our emotions?
Well, I mean, to go to a different kind of viewpoint, if you thought of it, if we're looking at the magnetosphere as our network, right, that we're connected to, is it possible, like when we go back to Sheri's description of sound getting muted and, the feeling of being muted and, time basically speeding up, right? I mean, when we're looking at that, is it possible that, in our normal everyday lives, our brains, we're interfaced with that cloud, okay? We're connected. We're connected just like a computer is, right? When there's lag and interruption in that network, what happens on our computers? Things, they warp. They speed up, they slow down. There's a hitch. There's a hitch, right? If you're playing video games, you'll notice you might see your buddy running, and all of a sudden he blips from one spot, and now he's 20 feet away. That's called a warp, right? So that's a connection issue. Is that possible, like, for, say, Sheri in this case? She gets a bad connection, okay? Her brain gets a bad connection to the magnetosphere. And in doing so, she's not able to download that sense of smell the way it was, or download that sense of time, or download that sense of whatever. Like it's coming in lag. It's lag spikes. That's how she got there so fast. She warped.
Some real life latency.
Yeah, because the more you actually break down the whole concept that the magnetosphere is a cloud for our memory, and that we're connected to it, the more and more it sounds like real life as we know it is. It's like a program. It's like a computer program. It's like we really are in the Matrix, right? You could even look at DNA. What's DNA? Well, it's a bunch of code, right? It's a bunch of code. That's what a computer program is. It's a bunch of code. When you break it right down, it's like everything. A sound, it has frequencies. It's a number. When you break down physical matter, again, okay, it vibrates at a certain frequency. We have numbers, but it's all, you could put it all to similar to how code works, right? So that's some food for thought. We have all these things in our life that we associate with physical properties, and we associate with just a spiritual nature. But is it possible that it's all it's just program? Do you know what I mean? Like, what if this is it? We're a computer program made by an alien intelligence. Maybe that's
the holographic universe, as it were, I believe is the theory.
Yeah, like maybe the God that we think we know, he made a video game and we're in it, right? It's a boring one. It's probably like The Sims, but
well, I think the idea, I guess, taken in a scientific way, the holographic universe is the idea that a race of beings became so advanced that they developed quantum computers that were able to actually simulate the universe. And they chose to do so to gain a better understanding of who they were and where they came from and what the universe is all about. And because the simulation is so advanced and based on, quantum computing, which some claim actually explains the existence of consciousness, that the brain itself is just a complex biological quantum computer, and that through the interactions of these very delicate, subtle, yet very important quantum fluctuations create the experience that we know as consciousness. And if that's the case, then there's no reason why a quantum computer couldn't replicate or simulate, I guess, those same kind of conditions. And statistically speaking, once you crunch the numbers, it's far more likely that we exist in a quantum simulation, because there's one real universe, and then there's quantum simulations within quantum simulations within quantum simulations.
So, really, I don't think anybody expected this to get so complicated, right? But it is a really interesting, there's a lot of things to think about there. This is the topic went in a very sophisticated area, I think. I think it's something worth discussing, and it's different. So I hope that you all enjoy it, and I'm really interested to hear your opinions on it, your idea. Like, I'm not saying that we know. This is all conjecture. But, what do you guys think about it? Given what we said, based on what we know is true, what are your thoughts? Are we in a video game? Are we in a simulated reality?
And do you have any experiences of your own that may kind of parallel Sheri's experience?
Exactly. Missing time and time anomalies is an extremely fascinating subject that we don't hear near enough about. So if you have your own stories, actually, tell us in the comments for sure. But we'd also like you to submit it to us at the official website. For that matter, any effed up stories you have on the paranormal, we'd like to hear that. So you can submit that to us at our official website, which is effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. We also take paranormal pictures. And also, you can click the little annotation on this video that says click here to submit, because that'll take you right to the submission page. Just fill out the form and hit submit. We'll get it, and we'll get it on the website and possibly in a podcast. And with that having been said, just to kind of remind you once again, in case you've forgotten, next video going up, you have 24 hours to watch it for free. Depending on how many of you watch it for free and whether or not you watch the ads will determine if it stays free. Either which way you're going to help us out. You're either going to help us make it popular by watching it within the first 24 hours and watching the ads, in numbers, of course. It only works if you all do it in numbers. Or you're going to have to open your wallet and pay for it, and you'll help us that way. So that's the only way we're doing the stuff anymore, is if we get support. So yeah, support us. You can, spend a couple minutes of your time, or you can open your wallets.
And always, if you've enjoyed tonight's show and our other programs, be sure to like and subscribe.
Yeah, essentially all the ways that you can help us. That's our motivation to keep doing it. So, it is a give and take thing. We'll keep doing it for you, but you definitely got to help us back in return. So with that having been said, I hope to have the next podcast up early next week. So this Monday coming, I think it's February 2nd. It should hopefully be up by then. With that said, thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing your feedback on all things we discussed tonight. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your continued support. Have a great night.